trying to make, still sticking to much of the old world, but it's still very, very well made wines. I found the wines quite pleasant. Yeah. So I've got one of the companies that we have a little bit of a joint venture within that. I'm not really here to talk about that. I'm really here to talk about my partnership with Mr. Singler out there. He's going to promote our wines. I'm going to try and get across here a couple of times a year and do some tasting, do some dinners and promote the attributes of West Australian wine and Australian wine. So that's the main thing. But I think the wine in India is starting to come of age. They're starting to realise that what the people want to drink, they want that fruit flavour. And you have very, very spicy food. You need wine that has fruit power. So.
Is Kolkata the first Indian city that you visited?
No, I had been in Mumbai.
So what was the reaction there? I mean, what was the response?
I suppose the thing that I noticed more than anything with India is that the perception we have in Australia of India in total isn't what I have seen. It's my first visit here, and I think we tend to see the advertisement in Australia is of all the temples and all. You don't see a lot of advertisement on the cities and you know what happens is. Look, what I noticed about Mumbai, I haven't seen too much of Calcutta, unfortunately, but is I noticed that we had this like an ancient world, and you've got all this modernisation trying to go out of that, and it's quite surprising. Actually, some very, very good restaurants and some great food. And the interesting thing is I haven't eaten a lot of Indian food, I've eaten a lot of other food, but I've been very impressed with all the other food, so it's very, very good. And you can see a lot of emphasis now with a lot of the restaurateurs, a lot of hotels, they're really trying to push the food and wine mix and make it, it can sort of trendy, but for young people to get out and try it. The way we promote wine in Australia is to make it a social thing, something you can all sit around with a great meal, have some great wine, and just enjoy yourself and talk about it. And that's really how we really promote wine in Australia. And a lot of young people in Australia now drink wine. It's very, very popular actually, and very educated on wine. And if you look at the way the Indian wine drinking public is, it's very similar to what Australia was many, many years ago. If you look at Australia 15 years ago, it was the same thing. Well, we drank mainly beer, we drank mainly bourbon, we didn't drink a lot of whiskey, although whiskey was fairly popular, but bourbon and beer was probably the big one. So Australia had learnt drinking wine, drinking sweeter styles, where in India, with the whiskey you drink here, people here will be more used to get used to drinking drier wines faster because whiskey has that drier taste. So, but it's changing. And I suppose I travelled to China as well. And China's probably around about 5 years, just 5 years in front of India. They've started exactly the same way. They start off very slow. We've worked a little bit hard. China's been doing a little bit longer than you guys, but it's the same thing. You can see exactly the same pattern emerging. So I think the thing here is you have to promote wine as a social thing. Try not to get away from making an elitist type situation and something that everyone can sit down and enjoy. And I suppose the good thing about Australian wine is the way we make wine, particularly these styles of wine, is that they're very approachable for everybody because of their flavour, their softness, their roundness and richness of flavour. So I've been very impressed actually. So I just wish I wasn't going home so early. So unfortunately. So, yeah.
Just rounding off all that, the wine industry is whilst we have a small grape as a state, in income earning capacity in exports accounts for about 28% of Australia's total export earnings of its premium wines that it exports. And in May of every year is a fine wine festival, food and fine wine. It's a fine wine and food festival actually. And that takes place early in May in Perth every year. And great vineyards, Imagine Evans and Tate as well, then undertake tours to the great wine growing regions, which is just outside of the metropolitan area, and Margaret River, which is where a lot of these products come from. And that's a great holiday destination as well. It's becoming quite a feature. I suppose you could say it's a little similar to Napa Valley, to a lot of the wine growing regions of Australia.
Well, I mean, they class Margaret River in reality is a very similar climate to Bordeaux, extremely similar climate to parts of Bordeaux. I suppose in Australia we try and get away from associating ourselves to some extent with the old world, because what we're really trying to do is, and we already do it everywhere else in the world, is stand on our own feet, because we make styles that are completely different. And I think the great thing about wine industry across the world, and I drink a lot of wine and I'm passionate about it, is that every country makes something completely different and it suits all tastes. And I think that's the great thing we've got. And the great thing about Australia is we have very consistent weather patterns, and our quality can be very consistent all the time. And that's a really saving grace for us. And it's a great industry to be in, and it's a great industry to be able to start seeing people in other countries enjoying.
So do you think that the temperature and the weather of the city is conducive to drinking wine and things like that?
Without a doubt. And I think one of the...
But it's so sultry and humid here.
But Australia is a very hot country. We don't necessarily have a lot of humidity in parts of Australia, although we do have in the tropics. But Perth, for instance, over summer, we have very regular days around 40 degrees, 36, 40 degrees, and people sit around and they drink mainly white wine. And I mean, white wine is consumed a lot more in Australia than red wine at the moment. More white than red is sold in Australia. And that's the drinking in Australia at the moment. But what's happened there is that people in Australia, although we still drink eat red meat and eat Italian food, which has been a very dominant staple, we've moved more towards food from Asia, from the subcontinent, and a bit more Asian sort of Middle Eastern fusion in our wine, and a lot more seafood. And because Australian wine drinkers are very educated in wine, they like to drink wine that suits the food more, that balances with the food. And at the end of the day, wine's designed to have the food. That's what it was originally made for, to enjoy with food. And there's nothing better than drinking a great bottle of wine matched with the right food. And everything's in balance. Then after that, once you've done that, you can make your own choice what you want to drink. And when we promoted wine in Australia, to try and teach people to enjoy wine, we just suggest what food, and we show them, okay, what you do is, here's a great bottle of wine with the right food, and they taste it. They'll just say, it tastes so good. Because for so often people drink the wrong wine with food, and they get sourness in the taste and all that sort of stuff. So we try and educate them that way, and then they make their own decision down the track what they want to drink, because then they understand what they're tasting. And that's really what we try and do. And we make it simple without, and just make it fun, very social, having a great time with your friends. And that's really how we promote our
Does not get started.
Does it?